Well, good evening, everybody. This is Justin Roth at JamPlay.com with the first course, week 1 of Simple Songcrafting. Thanks for joining me here today. I've been looking forward to being here and chatting with you guys. And we're just going to kind of dive in because we've got 10 weeks ahead of us of a lot of different ways, a lot of things I want to talk about, different ways to approach songwriting. But there's also kind of a philosophy of writing that I want to kind of get out of the way and welcome you to as well. Some of you maybe have written a bunch of songs before and are looking for some new ideas. Maybe some of you have never written any songs before and are just trying to figure out where to start. And I have to say, no matter where you are on that path, those of you who have maybe written songs before will understand this part. But for those who haven't, I want you to know, like, songwriting in general is not a linear path. It is not something that that you can practice and master one facet of it and then say from then on out you will not struggle with that part of songwriting. Songwriting is has been for me one of the most elusive, mysterious, and frustrating and inspiring things I've ever done. And I hope that we can uncover some things that helps you discover those things as well. Not that I wish frustration on you, but songwriting is a very nebulous concept. We can maybe if you guys have done some guitar lessons on this site, you know that you can practice a lick or a technique, and once your fingers have got it, you know how to do it, and you don't ever really forget that. Maybe you need to warm up a little bit to be able to execute it, but from that point on, you will never be you'll never do worse than that because you have that skill in your skill set. Songwriting, when you start writing songs and start exploring all the different things that you can talk about, you may get to the point where you write this song that is just amazing. You're like, I've got it, I've figured it out, I know how to write a great song. Unfortunately, it's not like a skill set like with guitar playing. It doesn't mean that once you get to this mastery point for a song, it doesn't guarantee you that the next song won't stink. Unfortunately, maybe the next 10 songs. That is why it can be frustrating, but that's also why it can be inspiring, because sometimes songs can come out of nowhere and just kind of knock you upside the head, and you can just you're like, I don't even know where that came from. I call those the gift songs, where you feel like you were hardly doing anything at all. You were hardly going, oh, how do I make this more clever, or how do I structure this song? Sometimes that happens for a variety of reasons. We're all here wanting to write songs because we love songs, because we listen to songs. We've grown up listening to our favorite songs and being inspired, and whether or not we've ever dissected them to figure out why it is we love them. There's any number of reasons why you may fall in love with the song or the idea of songwriting. Songs move us in different ways. And I think as a songwriter, we have to remember that when we are trying to capture an idea and share it with others. Some songs move us because you love the idea or the message behind it or the story. Other songs move us because we fall in love with them because there's like this really catchy hook, and we sing along to that, and that just makes us feel good. Or it's got a great beat, and it just makes us want to move, even though the lyrics might be nothing profound at all. And there's no better or worse on any of this stuff because song art in general is so subjective. And so the definition of a good or great song is going to be different for every one of us. That can be a blessing and a curse as well, because as we are aspiring to become better and better songwriters, in the end, who is the judge? Does it mean, like, if you get 1 million views when you upload your song to YouTube? Maybe. However, it could be one song that you write for one person in particular, and it changes their life, and nobody else ever hears it, and that song is a great song. So that's one thing I wanted to get out of the way, to have you guys remember this whole journey of writing is so subjective. And what my goal in this 10-week course is to provide you with a lot of different tools to figure out, as you are fleshing out ideas for songs, how can you refine them? Or how could you try to look at them differently to find another way to make that song another notch better? Because if we don't have some of those tools, we can kind of just jot down our ideas, put some chords to it, strum along, sing it. It feels pretty good, but we may also not know what could be done differently. Sometimes doing something differently can just be different for the sake of being different as opposed to being better. What I want to do is present you with some different ways to try some of these different things to feel so that you can decide, does that make the song better or not? Because any number of tools, I'm going to back up and say, in songwriting, there really are no rules, meaning there is no linear path as if you do these 10 things, your song will be great. That's like the spoiler alert there. However, all of these tools are things that you can implement at different times or different stages of your writing to find what you could do to basically polish it up a little bit, and then decide for yourself if you like it more or not. So that is what we're going to be getting at over the course of these next 10 weeks. So to start out, I also want to remind everyone watching that this is meant to be a discussion. I highly encourage questions, comments, thoughts, your frustrations, things you've encountered, things that have helped you, because I can talk all day about different approaches, but each one of you have probably experienced something or found something that's really worked for you that I may have never tried. Again, since it's not a linear path, there's all sorts of things that come into play to inspire a song, or to inspire us to write. And so all throughout this course and through the whole 10-week course, please at any point, you're not going to sidetrack me. If you have a thought based on something I just said, or if it's completely unrelated to what I just said, but it's just in songwriting in general, and you want to throw a comment out there, I highly, highly encourage you to do so. And if you're anything like me, say in a classroom setting, since all of you are out there in the comfort of your home and I'm here talking to a camera, trusting that you are hearing me, if you're anything like me in a classroom setting, I may not be the first person to raise my hand to throw out a question because I'm going to think that nobody else has that question and it's a stupid question and I should know the answer, but I don't, so I'll just keep quiet. Trust me that in this forum, one, not only do you have the anonymity of being at home, but I promise you that your question you will not be the only one with that question, and so it can really feed this entire process by sharing anything that you guys have, so that we can kind of riff off of that and talk about that as another way to look at approaching songwriting and the creative process. So please keep that in mind at all points. You may find me at different points kind of repeating myself about certain things, and you may find I'll also probably say some things that contradicts what I may have said before, because at any point I may abandon, in my writing process, I may abandon everything I've tried to do to a song and go back to the basics, or say, that technique is the last thing that I want to do. So every song is unique. Every songwriter is unique. That's the other great thing about individual artists and yourself. When I say artists, I'm referring to you guys, because you are the creators of art. You are the creator of something that you want to share, hopefully with other people, which in and of itself means that you have to be willing to come up with an idea, share it, and know that not everyone will like it. And just because somebody doesn't like it, it doesn't mean that what you've done is incorrect or bad. Kind of waxing philosophical here, but I think it's such a huge part of deciding to be a songwriter. That acceptance of the process, that you will have great successes and probably, like most other people, far more failures than successes. Just in general, I know that some people will say, like, if they write 10 songs, they hope that one of them is a keeper. because I think the long haul of writing songs is like a workout, or like you can make a sports analogy, and like you don't win the championship, aka write an awesome song, without doing the practice. Although when you're writing, you don't necessarily know that it's a practice. It could be the championship, but you won't know it until you get to the end of that song and say, oh, actually, that's amazing. That's the best thing I've ever done. But most of the time, a lot of the things that we will work on may not turn out the way that we had hoped. I feel like another quote is that like 90% of what we create will not be in the top 10% of what we create, meaning 90% of it will not be our 10% best. But it's all part of the process. And I am a firm believer that the process of writing songs is what makes you a better writer. You can't get better at writing without writing. And sometimes, it's like, well, where do songs come from? Where am I supposed to get inspiration? There are a lot of different things there that can factor in where somebody's coming from. Some of you have maybe, whether you've written songs or not, you could say like, what do I want to write a song about? For one of the most common things, you're like, it's you've fallen in love and you want to tell that person how you feel about them, or you've fallen in love and you want to tell the world how you feel about this person, or you've fallen in love, and instead of it being directed at somebody, it's more of like this reflective thing where you're talking about how actually you're scared because you don't want to get hurt. Or, everyone's kind of got their style of songs that you may migrate to, or the ones that you find yourself loving more than other songs, whether it's the style or genre of it, meaning just like the style of music, or the themes. Some people love love songs. Some people love story songs, or some people love murder ballad songs, and each one of you are going to probably be coming from a slightly different, place of what it is that you've grown up listening to, what kind of songwriter you want to be, and the great thing about songwriting is it applies to all genres. Some of these techniques may or may not ever, show themselves in different styles, but so there's a lot of different ways to approach this. Just like I said with, like learning how to play guitar, there'll be a lot more of like, well, put your fingers here and play this, as far as the methodology of it. Songwriting, we can talk about methodology, but you can also throw methodology to the wind and say, that doesn't mean anything to me. I want to write what I feel, with no rules. And thankfully, this art form has no rules. So that's kind of long-winded all around way of philosophy of writing, but I think it's really important because we're not talking about a concrete skill set here of learning how to execute something on the guitar or learning how to build a house, where there's a right way and a wrong way. This is highly interpretive and subjective, and the creative process, there's a certain amount, pretty high amount of honoring that process that needs to be done in order to write songs in a way that we don't feel like we're being too self-defeating, because it's pretty easy to write a handful of songs or even be on your first song and you write the first line and you're like, oh, that's great. And you get to the second line and you're like, you can't come up with anything that you feel is good, and then you're just like, I suck. You've probably done that if you've written songs. You've probably had a lot of those moments, and I promise you, I have as well. Everyone who's ever written, people who have written hit songs, the next day they could be writing songs that are absolutely horrible, quote unquote horrible. So again, the elusive mystery of songwriting. So welcome to that, everybody. I hope that's inspiring and not gonna ward you off, but it is a wonderful art form. I think it's, people who write books have 100, 200, 300, 900 pages to tell their stories. And you as a songwriter, you have about 3 to 4 minutes. So there's a great economy in writing songs and making every word and every line really count. Make sure that it's really contributing to your song, your story.
All right, Justin, we've
have
got a few questions already have come in, so that's
All right,
great. Thanks, everybody, for already getting on and asking those questions, and it seems like people are really excited about this course. Here's one from Ku. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. Sorry. Is the course mostly for singer-songwriters? I'm a metal guitarist. Will I learn writing metal songs here as well, or should I rather spend my time on other JamPlay courses?
Well, songwriting applies to every genre. It's what we're getting at, like what we can do to make our lyrics stronger, and how we can make the music support our story. I will not be, playing an electric guitar with distortion and playing anything in the heavy metal style. So style-wise, this may or may not be your thing as far as what I play, when I play, and I'm not going to necessarily play all that often. I'll demonstrate some things, but it's not about demonstrating the style and trying to teach the style. It's about here's a way that you can work on trying to write a new song, and I think all these things are going to relate to you, and you can decide as we get further into the course as well. But songwriting to me applies to any genre. My examples may be more singer-songwriter like, because that's who I am, or who I am as an artist and as a writer. However, these techniques or these different tools on how to write songs and how to work with them to polish them up will apply to any style.
Okay, here's one from Diane. Who determines what is a keeper? What are your criteria for saying a song is a success?
That brings up a really great point, and I'm just I have a quote and I'm looking for it right now. Oh yeah. It is not your business to determine how good a song is, nor how it compares with any other expression. It is your business to keep it your own and to keep it yours clear and direct, to keep the channel open. So what I mean is that what makes a song great? Is it when you put it on YouTube and 1 million people watch it? That could be, say, well, there's something there. People are really enjoying it. But it could also be, for starters, does it make you feel good? Sometimes that, in the end, there's kind of like, I see 4 different categories of songs. There are songs that you write that you're very proud of, and when you play it for other people, they love it too, and you're like, okay, that's some great feedback. I feel good about it. They feel good about it. It must be good. Whether or not it becomes a hit song and has 1 million downloads, that's irrelevant. That could be just like gravy on top. Then there's songs that you write that you feel really good about, that mean something to you. It's like you're either writing about a subject that you're passionate about, or the song itself is really therapeutic to you. But other people don't. When you play it out, other people don't respond to it that much. That doesn't mean it's not a great song or a keeper song. Creating art is not about. If your goal is to please the most people, there are ways to try to write those kind of songs as well, and you may, sing them and say, this is like the cheesiest song ever, but everybody loves it. Does that make it a keeper because other people like it? So on those 4 types of songs, you love it, other people love it. The other one, you love it, other people don't seem to love it. Then there's songs that you write and you're like, oh, that's really not a great song. I really don't feel great about it. But maybe you've shared it with some people, or you recorded it and put it on a record and have never played it since. But then other people hear it and they come up and they say, that's my favorite song on your album. And you're like, really? Like, that's my least favorite. You can't say that to them. You can't convince them that it's not a good song. It's just you've either lost connection with it, but somebody else is resonating with it. Then there's the 4th quadrant, a song you don't like, and you play it for other people, and nobody else seems to like it either. So those are the ones that maybe definitely aren't keepers. But those other 3 quadrants are all keepers because they mean something to somebody. It's like any art. We could look at famous painters, or the hit song on the radio right now. You could say that's the worst song ever. That happens all the time on hit radio or whatever style, but there's a certain core of people who love it. So it's a keeper there. So deciding what's a keeper is totally up to you, and whether or not you need that feedback from other people of also praising what you've done. So, and that just kind of comes with getting out there, because being a creator of any art, you've got to be open to the fact that not everyone's going to love what you do. And whether they criticize what you've done and don't like it, or they praise what you've done, you shouldn't listen to either one of them too much, because it just can mess with your head. So trust your gut. But I hope to provide you with skills to, some tools to be more discerning about what is working and what is not, to make it better and better, to hopefully get more keeper songs. So there's a long answer.
Cool. All right, Cameron 26 asks, I have a notebook that I write in every night, ideas, situations, feelings into song lyrics. How can I put them all together for a song?
Well, that is why we're here. And there is not one answer for that. Coming up with, that's great that you write every night, because I know people who, some songwriters who say, I can't not write. Like they're always inspired to write. And it's awesome that you do that. And whether that's a discipline you've chosen or something that you're inspired to do, it's a great thing, because there are other songwriters, myself included, that sitting down to write, I know that when I'm going to do it, it could be a very frustrating experience. And granted, maybe it's the difference. If you're journaling, you're not looking to decide whether or not it's flowing together as a song or not, but you're trying to get clear on what your emotions and what you're feeling, and that in and of itself is going to be a great asset to your writing, because you've kind of dove into whatever it is that's going on in your life and been able to figure out what you're feeling. And maybe it brings up, you've probably found yourself, anybody who's, whether it's writing songs or journaling, when the pen is moving, there's something to that you've kind of let go of control in a way of expressing yourself, and you might find yourself writing something that you hadn't really thought of in advance, which might be some great insight into how you really feel about this situation or about this person, or and just the act of writing is what uncovers. To me, it's like digging. You can't get to the treasure if you're not willing to just go through the motion of write, or dig, which may seem monotonous, and you may feel like, well, I'm not really saying anything new or original or blah, blah, blah. But then all of a sudden, you get some sort of insight from that. So to try to go back to your question, stick with us through this course, and there's going to be different things, exercises I'm going to be having you do, writing exercises, and then specific ways of trying to say, okay, let's put that to music, and I'll provide you basically with the music to say, okay, if I don't know how to put chords to it yet, we'll say well, let's work on how do you make that singable. So I won't get too far into that right now, but we're going to have multiple stages of how to take lyrics and put them to music, because we're probably all coming from this from a different point too. I'm assuming many of you play instruments, but not all songwriters do. And different people have a different experience or sense of melody. So the musicianship of everybody is going to be another factor that influences how you write, whether you write on guitar or piano or just come up with lyrics and a melody. I'm hoping going to try to address all those different ways that you can kind of marry the two, the lyric and the music. So that doesn't fully answer your question to tell you how to do it. But it's saying that we are going to get to all those things, because there isn't a simple, quick answer for that. All right.
We did have one more question just come in.
Sure.
Here from Adam Q. I write poems. Have you ever wrote a poem and then turned it into a song?
Me personally, I haven't written anything that I felt was a poem. However, there's the argument you could say, depending on the writing style and the rhyme scheme, many lyrics could be read as though they're a poem. I feel, I guess, I've done that as writing exercises before. I've actually taken other people's poems that I felt had a good song flow, meaning like the amount of syllables per line was relatively similar. So it's because some poetry, depending on the style of the poetry, there might be short line, and then a really long line, and the rhyme scheme is stretched out across, a lot more syllables. So sometimes like that is harder to put into song. If you're trying to make it feel like a structured song, like a verse chorus or like a pop song sort of structure, then there's the style of I mentioned before, it's like there's love songs, there's story songs, which could just be like a cycling of three chords, and whether it's sung or almost like rambled storytelling over the top of music, that is a song, but it's almost like a recitation of a story. You could do the same with poetry. And if poetry, sometimes the language in poetry is maybe, this again, I don't know your style, but like some language of some poetry is more, it's playing off of alliteration and different things in the language that you use that may or may not make it harder to be singable. But you could write, there's music that's like more impressionistic, where it doesn't feel like here's the verse, here's the chorus, here's the bridge. So poetry put to music totally works, but depends on the style, the writing style, how easy it is, and in the end, what your end goal of what you want the song to feel like, and what style. So, okay, go on from there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, since that last question, when I just brought up talking about verses and choruses, again, knowing that everyone's kind of coming from different backgrounds and different amount of experience, I want to just kind of a standard basic terms of things that come up in songs, in case some of you aren't as familiar with looking at structures of songs. And I'm going to get a lot more in depth of this in the coming weeks. But in general, most songs, especially the stuff that you hear on the radio, not to say that should be your gauge of what's a great song, but you have verses, choruses, bridges, pre-choruses. So I just want to go to basically just the simple breakdown of a lot of song structures as we are getting to the coming weeks, where we're actually be kind of putting content to these structures. So the basic the idea of a verse. The verse is typically looked at as your vehicle for telling the story, telling the moving your story along, giving us the details of like, what is this song about? And then the chorus is typically kind of the universal message behind the story in a way. It's usually the first part of the song that people hear, that they kind of use. There's a lot of times that's the hookiest part or the catchiest part. It's also the part that a lot of people, after the fact, they'll find themselves singing the chorus, because the nature of a chorus is that it comes back around, usually 2, 3, 4 times, depending on the style and length of the song. So it's the thing. In the verses, the lyrics are always changing from verse to verse to verse, and it's advancing the story throughout the song. The chorus, more often than not, have the same lyrics and the same music in them. So it's repeated. So it might go verse and then a chorus, and then another verse that's different, and then the chorus that was the same as before, because it becomes the central theme that the verses are kind of hung around. So it'll contain, the universal message. It may be the biggest section of the song, like the biggest anthemic part, again, depending on style. It may contain the hook, which the chorus itself, the melody of the chorus may be the hook. And a hook is simply kind of a mnemonic tool, whether it's like the lyric that you're saying, that is the thing that you want everyone to remember. It might be the melody of it that becomes like the little, what do they call it? The earworm that you can't get out of your head. Sometimes it happens on a song you love. Sometimes it happens from a song that you hate. But the hook is so strong you can't get it out of your head. So a lot of times that'll be contained within the chorus. And more often than not, again, none of these are rules. These are just kind of generalizations of what typically happens, is that the chorus will also contain the title of your song. And again, not a rule. a lot of times the title really kind of sets the stage for what the song is about. So before anybody even hears it, they see the title and they're like, oh, it sounds interesting. It seems like it's a love song, or it's a, murder ballad, or whatever it is. There's some sort of hint as to what the song is going to be about. A lot of people end up having confusion about bridges as far as like what it is. Bridges literally are a bridge, musical and lyrical bridge to the rest of the song. For one, it provides an opportunity, and not every song needs a bridge by any means. Sometimes songs, it could be a detriment to a song to add a bridge. But a bridge is usually musically it's playing something different, some different chords than the verse and the chorus structure has already established. And a lot of times a bridge will come, 2/3 of the way through the song. So in a way it serves like a palate cleanser. It kind of gives our ears a break and go, oh, there's some different chords. We're going someplace else musically. Bridges can sometimes be 1 or 2 lines, or it could be a longer 4-line bridge. Again, no rules there. Lyrically, the function of the bridge, though, will typically be specifically trying to speak in a different way than the verses and the choruses are. It may not lay out details to propel the story forward like the verses have. It may not be the central theme like the chorus has been. The bridge is trying to be a bridge to like give us perhaps a different perspective. Off the top of my head, if I were to say, let's say we're writing a murder ballad song, and like the verses are like, well, he did this and she did that, and they were in this old town, and it's like the details of the story. And the chorus is, I don't have a lyrical idea, but like the chorus is like the theme of like how this all went down. The bridge all of a sudden might be sung from the perspective of one of the two characters. Instead of being the outside person telling the story, maybe the bridge is like, well, or imagine like, well, I wonder what he was thinking, So if that makes sense, it's like shift the perspective outside of the way that you've been telling the story and tell it from another angle. And it's also an opportunity if there's like a moral of the story for whatever the song is about. And if you feel like if it may not be clear at this point, it's your opportunity to more or less say, and in case you're not getting it, here's the emotion behind what this story is, or here it's that perspective change that just gives the listener the opportunity to get a second view or a second insight into the story. So that bridge is like a palate cleanser musically, a different perspective to really make the point of the song clear, and an opportunity to kind of bring in another perspective. So other than that, there's we talked about the hook and how that ends up a lot of times being in the chorus. Sometimes the hook can simply be sometimes there's also just like an instrumental hook within the song. There's like some guitar riff that becomes like the catchy thing. It's in the intro, it's in the outro, it's in the solo section, and maybe it appears between verses. And it's kind of like just a melodic thing that has nothing to do with the lyrics. That is something that is like the earworm that gets stuck in your head. Now, there's other song forms, which in the coming weeks we will get to, but the other possible thing, instead of a chorus, there are songs with refrains. And sometimes there's confusion between a chorus and a refrain. And so a refrain is more often than not, it comes in more story songs where it's the first and or last line of what would be considered a verse. So that, let's say it's the last line of a verse, whereas the entire verse is setting up and leading itself to that one line, which is repeated at the end of each verse, which you might say, well, that's just like a chorus. It comes after the verse. But musically, it may still be in the form of the verse. So it's not trying to depart musically from it. It's just like directing all the lyrics within that verse to that last line, which would be considered the refrain, which more often than not, that refrain is also contains the title. A great example of that is Bob Dylan's Tangled Up in Blue. If you're not familiar with the song, look it up on YouTube. Even just look up the lyrics and read through it, and you see how each verse, it always ends on Tangled Up in Blue. And so then when you listen to it, a song, you see that it Tangled Up in Blue kind of has its own melody, but the chords behind it aren't really that different from the chorus. So that's we'll get more into that down the road, but those are kind of some of the terms that will be thrown around throughout this 10-week course. So I just want to make sure that that was out there and that people are familiar with that more or less. And again, feel free to shout out any questions along the way here as we go. So I appreciate everybody who's already written in. Just need to get some water.
Yeah, we did have one just come in from Boondock Sate. If a song has no words, do these divisions still apply?
Divisions, I'm assuming he means like the verse and the chorus and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, to me, instrumental, I write instrumental music as well. So songwriting usually refers to lyric writing, but that's not to say, I mean, I think a lot of the things we're going to be talking about in this course are going to be about marrying the lyrics and music. But writing instrumental music, I see it as like an A section and a B section and a C section. So musically, it still does kind of like what a verse and a chorus and a bridge would do. Because in an instrumental, you kind of, assuming there's like some sort of melodic idea that flows through a section, which may be an A section, which could essentially be considered a verse. And then when you want to switch that melody to something else, it might be more of the hook or the B section or the chorus. So yeah, all those things still apply because we're talking about what is repeated. In an instrumental thing, that A section melody may be actually repeated the next time the A section comes around because there's not lyrical content to propel the story forward. But in a song, the melody of one verse to the melody of the next verse may be very similar, more or less the same, but depending on the words and the amount of syllables in the line, there might be some subtle phrasing changes, which is also something we're going to get to down the road of how to develop those kind of ideas. So, so those sections still do apply for instrumental music as well, assuming you are trying to delineate the feeling of one or the melody of one section to the melody of another section. Maybe I'll take this opportunity to, while we're sitting here, again, thank you for all the questions. I want to kind of beg you guys for a little feedback on something too, because I've kind of got the things that I know I plan to address throughout these 10 weeks. But at any point, I'm ready to derail that train and go down the avenue of anything that comes up from all of you guys. So I'd love to just if you each just take 20 seconds. I'm just going to sit here, and for anybody who's willing to do it, to jot 3 things that you'd like to get out of this course, and everything that you guys. And we won't necessarily be able to read them all right now, but it'll give me fodder for things that I want to make sure I don't ever gloss over or forget to talk about. So why don't we just take 20 minutes, whatever, type 3 things that you'd like to get out of this, the long term, the whole course, and we'll make sure that we're going to be getting to those things, and I'll look forward to hearing what you guys have in mind, and then I'll come back and do some more talking. Okay.
Okay, so CT Guitar said 145 GCD or variations is a possible one, I think. Yeah. I guess he might be answering another question, sorry. Motivator said learn how to make lyrics flow like a story. Just Josh said 1 women, 2 money, 3 fame. So how to put music to lyrics, how to find ideas, put my existing lyrics to playable music.
Will you be able to print these out or send these to me too? Just as or I'll be able to read them over and see the stuff.
I could try. We are with our new chat. I'm not sure. We have had issues with losing the text, so
okay.
We'll have to see if I can get it before. See, chord progressions, ideas for chorus chords, clarity and lyrics, how to put an idea into a whole song. This person writes riffs. It's the person who asked a question earlier, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that. I do write riffs, but never manage to put them into a whole song.
Okay.
Organize thoughts into words. Yeah, lots of good. Yeah, thanks everybody. This is great. Lot more than we probably have time to read right here. So this is great.
Okay. Well, I'll be sure for the things that are coming up. I'll when this is over today, I'll take a look at all those things and make notes of these things and all the aside from what was it, women and money and I don't know. I'm not gonna make any promises on that. There is a joke though that in how do you make at least in the genre that I play in, it's like how do you make $1 million, being a singer-songwriter, and the answer is start with 2 million. It's again that's one of those things, like you could write a great song that actually makes you some money, or you could write a great song that really changes somebody's life, and you can decide on. Well, you don't get to fully decide on which one happens to you, but there are different ways about going about it. And but I will answer this question. I will say this though. This is not necessarily about songwriting, but this is musicians. You probably already know this, and songwriters probably already know this. That it's we kind of have a reputation. And what I mean by that is that we can fully fall in love with our creative art form. And at first, for the person who was asking about whether or not it would get you women, or for the ladies, get you men, it can be a very attractive thing of it being a creative individual, and people may be drawn to you. And then if you are so obsessed in creating all the time and don't have space for other people, it can attract them and it can repel them at the same time. So that has nothing to do with songwriting, but I had to, since that came up, I had to say that. Well, I think I want to do. Well, at the end of this course, or today's course, there is going to be a guided practice that you're going to download. And it's going to be an exercise. Like I said, you can't get better at songwriting by just talking about songwriting or listening to somebody talk about songwriting. You need to be writing. And sometimes writing, things that you're writing feel pointless, whether you're working on a song or you're doing an assignment for something and you got to write a story and you're like, this is, for the person who has the journal every night, like this is going to be right up your alley because you're already kind of doing these kinds of things and keeping the pen moving. And so this guided practice is going to be giving you a choice of a number of different prompts, writing prompts to kind of cue off of. And the idea of it, the other great big thing about getting started with songwriting, and the thing that can kill a lot of songs, not only can kill the song, it can kill your passion for writing songs, is the editor. The writing phase, and it's going to apply for a little while here on these coming lessons. Editing, our brains tend to want to judge everything that comes out of our mouth or everything that we write on the page, and that will kill the writing process. Editing is a completely valid and important part of the songwriting process. Later, much, much later. So I encourage you on these writing exercises. You just in general, anytime you're writing, is to not judge as it's coming out, because I wholeheartedly believe for when it comes to writing songs, is that you need to develop the discipline of seeing things through to the end. What I mean by that is, I don't know how many hundreds of times of like, oh, here's a great first line, or maybe it's a first verse, and then I'm stuck. And everything that I try to write is I cross it out. It's awful, it's awful, it's awful. And then I never get past that second verse, or let alone sometimes that second line. You're like, but it seemed like such a great idea for a song. And then you get to that one line that doesn't work and you stop. And that's the editor coming into the room saying, hey, everybody, I'm here to destroy your party. I'm going to encourage you all along the way to really try to keep that editor in check. Keep it locked up under lock and key. We're gonna need those skills and that voice to like question, like, is that the best thing you could say here? Is that the best way to say it? But not when we're trying to get ideas out and flowing. So keep the editor out of the room. Keep the pen moving. And even if you're writing, whether it's these writing exercises or writing a song, when you get to that spot where you're like, I can't think of something good to say, write something, just allow yourself to write a filler line so that you can continue on, so that you can continue to discover what you're trying to dig through and unearth in this song. And a lot of times you could say first verse awful, second verse awful, but the idea of this song is still a good one and I want to figure it out. And if you stop on that first verse, you're never going to get to what this song could be. And maybe by the time you get to that third verse, you've kind of found your voice for what this song is really about. So I encourage you, for any time we start something, to see it through to the end, no matter how good or how bad you think it is. Writing a complete bad song makes you a better songwriter than stopping at line 1 because you can't think of what the second line is going to be. So that's the little takeaway advice as we lead into this exercise that you will download. But before we do that, I was just gonna send you off on a song. Just play a song that to me, it's one that I wrote, but it's a song that to me is all about this process of being part of something bigger. And what I mean by that is this the collective of artists, songwriters, people who want to create, people who inspire us to create, and people who also encourage us to create. So that's kind of the idea behind this song, and then I think let's see, and then I've got a couple other suggestions. Just quick ones when I get at the end of this song, and then we'll sign off from there.
All right, we do have a few more questions. Do you want to hit those first, or?
Oh yeah,
okay.
Sure. Let's do the questions.
Okay, touch on these at least. Let's see.
This is great that you guys are chiming in. I really appreciate it. Songwriting is a discussion. It shouldn't be done in a bubble, and so this is really benefiting for everybody to have you guys chime in. So thank you.
Yeah. Deep Potterfield is wondering what you think of Neil Peart as a songwriter. I assume that was for Justin.
Well, that would require me to be a lot more familiar with his work. So I can't really comment on that. I know he's in Rush, but I can't say that I know his work intimately enough. I know I can hear Tom Sawyer in my head. I can hear Rush songs, but I haven't dissected him as a songwriter. The fact that his songs, with me out ever owning a Rush album, having some of his songs in my head means that he's doing something right. I'm not even I don't even own the music, and it's stuck with me. So he's doing something right. But that's about all I can say about that.
Okay, from River Black, what is a chord progression formula you go to if you are just searching for a song idea?
Well, in Western music, which is the kind of music that most of us are subjected to day in and day out on the radio, Western music, it's not classical music, it's not African music or Indian music. It's most of Western music is based around the 1-4-5 progression. That's like the simplest version, and I can get into more detail about that for anybody who's not as familiar with that. But basically, the 1-4-5. If you've heard that terminology but don't know what it is, it's referring to the chord that lands on that scale degree of whatever key you're in. So in the key of G, you have let's say the key of C, since I don't have to think about sharps and flats. In the key of C, C is your 1. So like C, D, E, F, G, A, B, back to C is the 1 again. It's the same as saying do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It's counting up the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is back when we get to C again. So the 1 chord is built on C, or do, or 1. And as we go up that scale, C, D, E, F. F is the 4 chord. Go up another one, G. G is the 5 chord. So, and without getting too much into theory, a lot of Western music is built around that 1-4-5. So in the key of C, we'd have C up to the 4 chord, which is F, and G, which is the 5. Millions of songs are written with 3 chords. And they may not be the most musical or musically complex with 3 chords, but is the common structure for pop music, whether it's from the UK or America. The more you know about chord structures or chord progressions and how to put in other chords outside of those 3, which we will get to later in this course, the more complex you can make your songs, and the more interesting musically you can make your songs. So I don't know if that answers the original question, but the 1-4-5 of any particular key, and I will have stuff again in future courses that is going to talk more specifically about this, on how to figure out, if you don't even know what key you're in, we'll get into more of those details to figure that out and say, start with these chords, and then here are other chords that you could incorporate that are within that key. Here are some other chords you can incorporate that are outside of the key. So we'll try to keep it more song focused, but I'll be alluding to some different theory stuff so you can kind of work through some of those musical ideas.
Okay. Do words, lyrics always have to come first before the music?
Absolutely not. That's next week's course is going to be starting to talk about some of that and how to approach it from both sides. Some people, like the person who does the journaling at night, some people write all the time because that's like how it comes easier to them to express themselves lyrically or in the written word. Some people are musicians first. Myself personally, I feel I'm more musician first. I can play guitar all day and be like, I like that. That could be a song. But then it's the question. It's like, well, what's it about? Like, what do I have to say? What's worth singing about? What's something that people actually want to hear, whether they like the music or not? So a lot of you probably have a sense of what your strengths are. Do you feel like lyrics come easier to you, or do you feel music comes easier to you? And you can write songs from both sides. My favorite ones are the ones that come all at the same time, which is kind of like a gift of a song where things are just kind of happening. And but more often than not, I've got like what would be the equivalent of a notebook of guitar ideas that I think are songs. And all that I've got from that is a guitar progression, and maybe there's a melodic idea in there. And then it's a matter for me to go and try to figure out what this song could be about. So both ways. We'll get way more in depth on that next week.
Okay, I've got one more that we can hit here before you play your song. Why 2 capos?
Oh, why 2 capos? Now we're getting guitar-y.
Yeah, a lot of people have been curious about the capos.
Oh, okay. Well, we can definitely incorporate that down the road for anybody who's definitely more in the singer-songwriter. I know this somebody who is more in the style of writing in metal. You won't see 2 capos in metal, I don't think. But so these capos, I've got a whole line of workshops on JamPlay teaching how to use these. But just to give you the intro, typical capo, which probably most of you own, is a standard capo that covers all 6 strings. Just raises the key of everything. This other one here it's called a drop D capo. There we go. It's got the low string cut out so that the low bass note rings past to this next capo and only raises the other 5 strings. I have another capo that you can't see right now because it's holding up my notes. It's a Kaiser shortcut capo, which only covers the A, D, and G string. So the 3 strings, the low E and the top high E and high B, both ring past the capo. So the idea behind it is me as a singer-songwriter, meaning I don't have a band. I always play solo. And so I want to get the most out of this guitar to be the harmonic backdrop to my song. And so it's a way for me to get richer sounds out of the guitar and do things that maybe a second player might typically do. But since I don't have that second player, I'm able to do a lot of things. And I also play in altered tunings. So I'll demonstrate more of that stuff as we go. This song that I'll play for you guys, although I know we're starting to go over time, is that all right? I can cut the song or do it anyway? Okay. So I'm in an altered tuning as well. And then using these partial capos to kind of further stretch it out. Is that it for questions for now? You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Let's go into the song.
Okay, we'll do the song, come back for a little recap at the end, and send you on your way. An August night, the Rocky Mountain sky, I stay up late to watch the stars rise. Around 3 a.m., 7 sisters peek their eyes at earthly bodies huddled around the fire. They look in wonder down on the land. The stars are born and rise under them. And it doesn't matter if you're an ember or a flame, or a cinder rising towards the sky. The light we give is not ours to take, but just to let it shine. And who's to say what makes a star shine bright enough to be seen from afar? Hydrogen, carbon, and flame are all a part of every star and every fire in our hearts. And into the skies, sending light. Some glow, others beacons in the night, like voices singing a song for the whole world to hear, our constellation. It doesn't matter if you're an ember or a flame, or a cinder rising towards the sky. The light we give is not ours to take, but just to let it shine. An August night, a Rocky Mountain sky. Let's stay up late and watch the stars rise. All right, everybody. Well, I wanted to leave you with just a couple quotes, hopefully to be a little fodder for your brains, your creative brains. One was, the role of a writer is not to say what we all can say, but what we are all unable to say. Meaning, well, I'm not going to say what I think it means. That's up to you. And the other thing when it comes to writing, don't let the truth get in the way of a good song. We are here to create, whether or not it's a real real thing, real story, real facts that we want to put into story, but sometimes the real facts aren't that interesting, or interesting enough, I should say. And so creative freedom to say and do whatever it is that you need to do to make the song better. And then to sign off, one other thing, I hope to do this each week to give you things for those of you who want to maybe do a little extra reading, a suggested reading. There's a great book called Writing Down the Bones by Natalie Goldberg, and it's all about song prompts, ways to say, or ways to writing exercises to say, I want to write a song, but can't really think of anything to write about, and it's ways to kind of open up some of those channels, which is what the guided practice is aimed to do for you this week. So good luck with that. It's been a lot of fun to be here with you. Thank you all for your questions. I look forward to digging in deeper as we go along, and look forward to all your interaction. And until next week, next Monday at 4 o'clock, we'll see you then.